Hi everybody, I'm David Weigel, and this is your Silver Tsunami update for Friday, August 19th, 2011. I hope you've had a great week. I'm coming to you from McDaniel College today. Very special place. This is a small liberal arts college just outside of Baltimore that year after year is ranked as one of our country's top small liberal arts colleges. They happen to be a client of ours for which we're working on a very special project with them that we're excited and we think is going to generate a lot of engagement across a lot of different generations. They're one of the few colleges in this country with a really strong gerontology program, and lastly, they're my alma mater. So I'm glad to be here today. I thought this was a great backdrop given to this week's stories in the e-brief, and in particular this week's lead story, which was from Fox Business News, and it talks about the growing number of boomers who are going back to college. And in this article they cite some research that indicates that adults 40 to 64 that are going back to college has increased 20%, accounting for upwards of 2 million new adults that are going back to college. We think this is really significant. The article did a great job of talking about some of the reasons why, whether it was to pursue an encore career or simply adapt to the changing workplace. And for many, it was simply for personal fulfillment. So we think they did a great job in there. At Immersion Active, we're placing our bets on the organizations and institutions that do three things: that take the financial zeitgeist of this country into consideration, that take the human behavioral aspects of an adult in the fall and winter of life into consideration, and then lastly, the ones that understand the real world constraints such as time that boomers have when they go back to college and their need for support that's different from a younger student. So great article. I encourage you to check it out. The next one is somewhat related in that you'd be hard pressed to go to a higher ed institution and find students not walking around with tablets. In fact, many institutions, including McDaniel here, will provide iPad 2s or smartphones as a part of the package for incoming freshmen. And this particular article in this week's e-brief is from eMarketer, and it cites some data that shows a generational divide between older Gen X and boomers and their use of tablets and e-readers versus the millennials who are more inclined to be using smartphones. And at Immersion Active, we predicted that this year would be the year of the smartphone, in fact, for boomers, and that's turning out to be the case. Tremendous growth in both adoption and engagement with those devices. But it doesn't surprise us that with the iPad and the e-readers, a couple of supporting reasons that they gave in this article were, for one, you have more households with the Gen X and boomers that are making greater than $100,000. So these more expensive devices are more likely to be found there. But the other reason is that these devices, especially e-readers like the Kindle, tend to be more task specific and intuitive for an older user. So something worth checking out, as this is a real growing space for us as marketers. They expect it to be over $1 billion worth of advertising and mobile advertising, and now we can even advertise on e-readers, so there's all kinds of opportunities there for engagement. And my final story for today has to do with another social networking site. Last week we brought to you Google Plus and Michael Utley's blog on what that means for the 50 plus. This week we're bringing to you an article on a new social network called StoryTree. And StoryTree believes that despite all the noise in the social media space, there is room for one more, because what's lacking is the ability to tell meaningful stories. And I think this site has done a really good job, and in fact will probably find a niche for itself. Because it does two things well. One, I think they've been really thoughtful about how do you extract those stories. It seems like as human beings, it seems like other people always want to tell us their stories, but in fact when you sit down with them and ask them for their story, they feel like they've been put on the spot. I think this website does a good job of making that process very easy, has a lot of intergenerational appeal. The second thing is it just seems very intuitive. And then you know, I would never place bets against any websites or business models coming out of Stanford, a couple of guys from Stanford. So you might want to check that out. The URL is storytree.me, M-E. That link will be on the Facebook page. That's it for this week. I hope you have a good week. I hope that you'll check out all of these links on facebook.com/silvertsunami. I hope you'll be part of the conversation, and remember, age equals opportunity.